Love doesn't always come with a smile. Sometimes it comes wearing a mask. That's the line that lived in my head the day everything broke apart. The day my daughter-in-law wrapped her arms around me, told me she loved me like her second mother, and then quietly slid a knife between my ribs where no one could see. If you asked anyone back then, they'd say I was the luckiest woman on my street. A good marriage, a gentle son, and a daughter-in-law who always arrived with flowers, soft-spoken and sweet, calling me mom even before the wedding. But you know, life has a way of hiding the rot beneath the prettiest paint. And I learned that lesson much later than I should have. Normal life. Setup. I grew up in a small town where neighbors greeted each other from porches, and church bells told time better than any clock. When my husband, James, and I bought our brick house on Linden Avenue, we thought we'd stay maybe 10 years. But life settled us there like a hand smoothing down a blanket. 40 years passed before I even realized it. Our house always smelled of coffee and lemon cleaner. James loved the smell of lemons. He said it made him think of summer, even in the dead of winter. Most mornings, he'd sit at the kitchen table, glasses low on his nose, reading the newspaper while I made oatmeal or fried eggs. He'd hum, always off key, as he stirred sugar into his cup. It was peaceful, ordinary in the nicest way. Our son, Michael, grew up in that calm. He was our only child, so James doted on him like he'd been carved from gold. I was softer with him, always afraid to hurt the feelings he kept tucked behind that quiet smile of his. When he went off to college, the house felt too big, silent in a way that echoed. But James and I found our rhythm again. Evenings on the porch swing, short walks to the bakery, his hand always finding mine like we were still young. Then, Michael brought her home. Emily. Pretty, polite, always brushing her dark hair behind her ear as if she were embarrassed by her own beauty. She hugged me the first time we met, not a quick, polite hug, but a warm, soft one, the kind you give someone you want to impress. "Thank you for raising him," she whispered. "He's the best man I've ever known." I blinked back tears that day, thinking, my son found a good one. Looking back, I realized that was the first act of her play. She complimented everything, my cooking, my home, even the way I folded towels. She insisted on helping in the kitchen, washing dishes even when I told her to sit. When she and Michael left that night, she squeezed my hands and said, "I love you already." I believed her. I really did. The months rolled on like honey, slow and sweet. They got engaged. We planned a modest wedding. James paid for most of it quietly. He said he wanted Michael to start his marriage without burdens. Emily was grateful. Or at least she acted like it. After the wedding, they visited often. She always came bearing gifts. Cookies she baked, candles, little scarves she claimed reminded me of me. But sometimes I'd catch her watching me with an expression I couldn't place. Not anger, not jealousy, more like calculation. And each time our eyes met, she'd blink, smile, and say something soft like, "You look beautiful today, Mom." I brushed it off. Not every strange feeling deserves a story, I told myself. Life carried forward, slow, comfortable, until James got sick. It started with little things, forgetting the porch light, losing track of words mid-sentence. Then weakness, trembling, the kind of coughing that makes you hold your own ribs. We tried everything, Appointments, tests, medications. Months of nights where I'd lie awake listening to him breathe, terrified of silence. Michael visited when he could. Emily always brought flowers. She sat with me in the kitchen, holding my hands, pouring me tea, whispering, "We'll get through this, Mom. I'm here." I believed her. I needed to. When James passed, I thought the world would stop. It didn't. It kept moving, cruel and steady, while I walked through it like someone wearing shoes 2 sizes too large. Emily was a comfort then, gentle, always near, fussing over me with blankets and meals. She even organized the paperwork. I didn't have the strength. She held me when I cried. She told me she loved me. She whispered that she would take care of me like I was her own mother. And I, broken, grieving, let her. For a while, that was enough. Or at least it felt like it. But storms don't hit all at once. Some creep in slowly, soft as a shadow at first. And the shadow started the day I noticed my son Michael avoiding my eyes. It was such a small thing, barely noticeable. But mothers, we feel things before we understand them. He'd pull away when I mentioned bills or the house. He'd clear his throat and change the subject when I asked about James's accounts. He kept looking at Emily as if waiting for permission to speak. That's when the first little chill landed in my chest. The first small whisper. Something isn't right. I tried to shake off that feeling, the one that sits low in your stomach like a pebble you can't swallow. Grief does strange things to the mind. I told myself that, repeated it even, but the pebble didn't move. It stayed there the day Michael stopped by with groceries, smiling too wide, shoulders too tight. He set the bags on the kitchen counter, avoiding the chair James used to sit in. He always did that now. "Mom," he began, looking at the refrigerator instead of me, I need to talk to you about something." My hands stilled around the apples I was washing. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" He opened his mouth, but the back door swung open before he could find the words. Emily stepped in, cheeks pink from the cold. She carried a bouquet of white roses, my favorite, but her eyes moved straight to Michael, not me. "You didn't start without me, did you?" she said lightly, brushing snow off her coat sleeve. "Start what?" Michael's face sank a little like a boy whose courage had just scattered across the floor. I was just helping Mom with groceries." Emily smiled at me, warm, practiced. "Let me finish unloading these, Mom. You sit, relax." There it was again, that softness, that sweetness. Yet I could feel the tension between them humming like a low electric wire. I dried my hands on a towel and sat at the table. "What did you want to talk about, Michael?" He glanced at Emily. Emily gave the smallest shake of her head, barely a twitch. My son swallowed hard. Nothing. I'll tell you later." A cold breeze rushed through the open back door, brushing my ankles. Or maybe that chill came from somewhere deeper. A second strange moment. Suspicion is something you try to ignore. It knocks softly the first time, politely, asking to be acknowledged. Then it knocks harder. 2 weeks after that interrupted conversation, Emily called me. "Mom," she said, her voice thin with worry, "can I ask you something? It's about the house." My pulse tightened. What about it? I just, I want to make sure you're okay here by yourself. Maybe it's too big. Maybe selling would be better for you. Selling? The word hit me like cold water. That's a big decision, and I'm not ready to leave. This is where your father-in-law and I built our life. Emily exhaled, soft and sympathetic. I know, Mom. I just care about you. You shouldn't be burdened with upkeep and bills. I'm fine, I said, more firmly. A beat of silence stretched. Of course, she replied, finally. Too quickly. Too easily. I just was checking. She hung up soon after, but something gnawed at me long after the line went silent. Why was she thinking about the house? And why did Michael look so nervous whenever finances were mentioned? I wish I could tell you I handled everything with grace, that I calmly walked into my son's house, asked for the truth, and got it. But that's not how betrayal works. Betrayal is messy. It's slow and fast at the same time. A drip one day, a thunderclap the next. That night, after the anonymous text, I sat at the dining table with a cup of tea I didn't remember making. I opened my late husband's old filing cabinet, a sturdy brown thing he insisted on keeping even after it went out of style. Bank statements, account summaries, investment papers. Everything was in there, or so I thought. But when I pulled out the folder labeled Savings, Joint, it was nearly empty. 3 sheets. That was it. James kept meticulous records. He never threw anything out. Something was wrong. I double-checked, triple-checked. Nothing. My heartbeat started climbing, tight, quick, painful. Then I noticed something odd. A corner of a document sticking out from behind the bottom of the drawer, caught between the wood and the metal rail. I tugged it free. Another bank statement, dated 2 months before James passed. The balance looked normal, just what we'd always kept in savings. But when I checked the next month's statement, one I found in the living room earlier, the balance was nearly gone. Drained. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. The numbers didn't change. Tens of thousands missing. Gone. Gone. My pulse pounded in my ears so hard I thought I might faint. Where had it gone? My mind raced with possibilities. Medical bills, accidental withdrawal, fees, fraud. But then my eyes landed on the transaction list. A withdrawal, a large one, authorized by Michael. No, not my Michael. He wouldn't. Then another transaction. A cashier's check, issued to Emily Carter's maiden name. The tea in my stomach turned sour. My hands shook so violently, I had to place them in my lap to stop from ripping the papers in half. The truth ignites. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak and settle, old wood shifting under the pressure of time. The bank statements sat on my bedside table, illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp. Every so often, I'd turn and read them again, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They never did. By morning, a decision had formed in me. Quiet, solid. I needed answers. I put on a cardigan, grabbed the file folder, and drove to Michael and Emily's house, a place I used to visit with baked casseroles and holiday gifts. The drive was silent, but my thoughts were anything but. Why didn't he tell me? Why did he take the money? What did Emily say to him? Did he think I wouldn't notice? Did they assume grief made me blind? By the time I parked in front of their small blue house, my hands were ice cold on the steering wheel. The confrontation begins. Emily opened the door. Her smile was immediate, automatic. "Mom! What a surprise! Come in!" "No," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "I want to speak to Michael." Her smile faltered. Barely, but enough. "Of course," she whispered. "He's just in the kitchen." I stepped past her and into the house. Something felt different. The air, the silence, the way Emily hovered behind me like a shadow with intentions. Michael stood over the kitchen sink, rinsing a mug. When he turned and saw me, color drained from his face. "Mom, is something wrong?" I placed the folder on the table. "Sit down." He did. Slowly, Emily slid into the chair beside him, her fingers curling around his arm. I opened the folder, spread out the papers like a dealer laying cards on a table. The amended will, the bank statements, the sticky note. "Explain," I said, quietly. Michael stared at the papers as if seeing them for the first time. His breathing grew shallow. Emily spoke before he could. "Mom, this is just legal confusion. You misunderstood." "Then explain," I repeated. Her jaw tightened. Just a flicker, the first crack in her polished mask. Michael ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, I was going to tell you. We what?" I asked softly. "You rewrote your father's will behind my back. You drained our savings. You hid it from me." Tears welled up in his eyes. "Mom, Emily said..." Emily's head snapped toward him, sharp as a blade. My stomach twisted. "Emily said what?" I asked. Silence. Dead, heavy silence. Finally, Michael whispered, "She said you were overwhelmed, that you couldn't handle finances anymore, that Dad would have wanted us to help." "Help? By taking everything?" "It wasn't like that," Emily cut in, voice firming. "You don't understand what it's been like for us. The debt, the hospital bills, the pressure." "There were no unpaid hospital bills," I said quietly. "I checked." Emily froze. "Try again," I said. Her face hardened, a new expression this time, cold, calculating, the softness wiped away like makeup after a long day. "Fine," she exhaled. "You want the truth? Your son and I needed stability, a future, and you have this house and those accounts sitting there doing nothing." "Doing nothing?" I whispered. "They were my life savings, mine and James's." Michael's voice cracked. "Emily said you'd be safer if we managed everything, that you might make mistakes, that you'd fall apart after Dad." My heart broke cleanly in that moment. Not from the theft, not from the deceit,
but from the realization that my son believed she loved me more than I could love myself. "Michael," I said, tears finally rising, "have I ever given you reason to think I'd lose my mind, that I'd throw my life away? Have I not been the one who held this family together?" He lowered his head. Emily looked at him instead of me, eyes sharp with silent pressure. It hit me then. My son wasn't the architect of this betrayal. He was a casualty of it. But casualty or not, he'd signed the papers. He'd followed her lead. He had chosen. And choices have consequences. Michael whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry." Emily didn't apologize once. She just crossed her arms and said, "We can fix this. We'll put your name back in when you're ready." "When I'm ready?" I repeated, as if this was my confusion, my mistake. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and stood. "You've taken enough from me," I said softly, and walked out. Emily didn't follow. Michael did. Halfway to the door. "Mom, please, don't leave like this." But I did. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I saw a curtain shift upstairs. Their neighbor. Watching. Word spreads fast in small neighborhoods, and secrets rarely stay buried. Not when betrayal starts to rot.
I drove home in silence. The autumn air smelled faintly of damp leaves and chimney smoke, ordinary smells that somehow felt foreign now, heavy with dread. The house was too quiet, too empty, and yet inside my chest was loud with anger, disbelief, and sorrow. I sat at the kitchen table, the folder still clutched in my lap, staring at the laminated wood surface. The sunlight spilled across it, warm and golden, mocking the chill in my heart. I could feel my pulse in my temples. It was a rhythm I didn't recognize. Not fear, not panic, just a slow, rising heat, the kind that comes before a storm. I knew I had choices. I could call a lawyer. I could sue. I could take every penny back and watch Emily and Michael squirm. I could humiliate them. I could make them pay in every way the law allowed. But I didn't. Because that isn't how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. I wasn't interested in destroying my son, though he'd made his choice. And revenge? It wouldn't bring James back. It wouldn't erase the nights of grief, the hollowness that followed me like a shadow. So I decided on another path, one quieter, one with more patience, one that didn't let them own my heart. Observation. I watched them, not like a spy, but quietly, deliberately, noticing everything. Every small interaction, every glance, every whispered word. It didn't take long to see patterns. Emily controlled conversations. She smiled at me, softened her voice when she wanted to disarm me, and manipulated Michael's nerves into obedience. Every transaction, every suggestion about money, every casual remark about safeguarding the future was calculated. I began keeping notes, times, dates, small details, things she didn't think I noticed. The way she suggested bills be paid from my account. The way she casually reminded Michael of the stress of managing finances. The way she flinched when I asked questions about her work, her past, her family. I wasn't naive anymore, and I would not be passive.
Word spreads faster than any text message, especially in a small town.
By the end of the week, whispers had started. Neighbors noticing subtle tensions. Michael visiting less frequently. Emily no longer hosting brunches or bringing flowers like she used to. It wasn't gossip I saw it, and it wasn't revenge. But when betrayal is exposed, consequences have a way of finding their own course. One afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Hargrove from down the street while taking the garbage out. "Oh dear," she said softly, leaning on her cane. "I heard about Emily and Michael. Are you okay?" I nodded, smiling faintly. "Yes, I'm managing. Better than managing. Relieved, actually. The truth has a way of clearing the air." She hesitated, then added, "People are talking, though. Some of the younger neighbors, they didn't know she could be like that." I felt no need to defend her. I just nodded. Truth is powerful. It needs no explanation. Emily faces morality. Michael reconsiders. Emily's demeanor shifted rapidly once the air of secrecy was gone. She tried to maintain her composure around family gatherings, but it was clear she was uncomfortable. Her laughter sounded rehearsed, her smiles calculated, and Michael noticed it too. One evening, Michael and I sat in my living room, the late afternoon sun spilling through the lace curtains. "Mom," he said quietly, "I talked to her. She knows she crossed a line. She didn't think you'd notice, didn't think I'd listen, but she knows now." I nodded. I've learned that people often act out of fear or selfishness. It's human, but the lesson is no one should ever make you doubt your worth. He looked down, silent. "I want to fix it," he whispered. "I want to make things right, even if it takes time. I can't undo what's done, but I need to try." It was enough. Small steps. One honest conversation at a time. The community and social consequences. Emily's carefully curated image began to crumble in the neighborhood. Neighbors who had welcomed her warmly now treated her cautiously. Those who had once praised her for taking care of Mom started asking questions, quietly, respectfully. And as truth became evident, her influence waned. But I did not gloat. I did not revel in her discomfort. Instead, I let integrity guide me. I answered questions, shared the facts calmly, and walked my path with quiet dignity. It was a strange feeling. Justice without cruelty. Power without aggression. A lesson I had hoped Michael and Emily would learn along the way. Michael's transformation. Michael began to understand the weight of his choices. He apologized sincerely, worked to restore my trust, and helped me reclaim control over finances without resistance. I see now how easily manipulation can bend even good intentions. I didn't realize how much I let her steer my decisions. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're learning. That's what matters." Integrity isn't about never making mistakes. It's about choosing to correct them when you do. It was the most honest I had felt in weeks, and slowly our bond, frayed by secrecy and betrayal, began to mend. Emily's reckoning. Emily tried to act normal, tried to regain influence, But it was too late. I watched her one afternoon fussing over a casserole as if nothing had happened. She paused, glanced at me, and I saw, just for a flicker, the fear in her eyes. Not of punishment, not of law, but of losing respect and trust. And perhaps that was the hardest consequence of all. The realization that manipulation can gain control over wealth and decisions, but it cannot steal dignity, cannot erase truth, cannot buy respect. Reclaiming my peace. Over the next weeks, I focused on myself. I spent mornings in the garden, feeling the sun warm my shoulders, smelling the earth, hearing the rustle of leaves. Evenings were quiet. I brewed tea and read James's old journals. His handwriting reminded me of the love that built this life, the strength that anchored me even when betrayal tried to shake it. I organized my finances, verified every account, and ensured that my future and Michael's was secure. Not for revenge, not for wealth, but for peace. And as the storm of deceit faded, I discovered something unexpected: freedom. I realized that what Emily tried to steal, my money, my control, was small compared to what I still possessed. My son, who now understood the gravity of loyalty, my home filled with memories and love, and my own voice, once quieted by grief, now firm, steady, unshakable. I had been betrayed, yes, but I had survived it. And more importantly, I had learned how to live beyond it. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The storm had passed, or at least the loudest part of it. What remained was quiet, steady and solid, like the roots of an old oak tree, holding firm in the wind. I began to rebuild not just my life, but my sense of self. Some mornings, I'd sit on the porch with a cup of tea and watch the world wake. The smell of wet leaves after a rain, the soft chirping of sparrows, the distant rumble of a school bus down the street. Simple things that once went unnoticed now felt precious. I realized that peace isn't found in money or control or even justice. It's found in moments like these, in the gentle rhythm of life continuing even after betrayal. Redefining family. Michael came over more often, but this time as my partner in life, not Emily's accomplice. He and I talked not just about money or wills, but about memories, hopes, and mistakes. We laughed over old family stories, cried over James's favorite jokes, and sometimes sat in silence, holding hands, letting words fill in the space between grief and recovery. He admitted to his mistakes fully, not defensively or with excuses, but honestly. "I let her influence me," he said one evening, sitting beside me in the living room. "I didn't consider your feelings, Mom. I didn't see the manipulation until it was almost too late." I nodded. "You've learned, Michael, and that's what matters. Awareness, responsibility, the courage to make it right." And slowly, with every conversation, the wound healed. Not completely, because betrayal always leaves its mark, but enough to breathe again without fear. Emily's absence. Emily's presence in our lives dwindled. She no longer invited herself into our home or decisions. Her influence faded, quietly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for me to feel the air lift. It was strange not to feel the constant tension, the subtle pressure of her gaze or her words. I didn't relish her absence. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. Freedom to reclaim not just my finances or my home, but my emotional space. A new routine. I returned to old routines that James had loved. Mornings in the garden, evenings with tea and James's journals. I even started cooking again, not out of obligation, but for the simple joy of it. The smell of baking bread, cinnamon, and roast chicken no longer reminded me of loss. It reminded me of life continuing, of joy persisting. And slowly, I realized something vital. Life doesn't pause for betrayal. Life doesn't wait for injustice to be corrected. It moves forward. And so must you. Sharing my story, one evening while Michael was helping me with dinner, I confessed something to him. "I've been thinking," I said, gently stirring a pot of soup. "I try to share my story." His brow furrowed. "Your story? With people?" "Yes," I said, smiling softly. "Not to humiliate anyone, not to dwell on pain, but to show that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you, that even when people you trust most deceive you, you can reclaim your peace. You can choose dignity over anger. You can choose healing." Michael nodded, quietly supportive. "You'd help a lot of people, Mom." And that's what I decided to do. I began writing, sharing the story in careful, reflective detail. The story of love, loss, trust, betrayal, and ultimately, resilience. Because what Emily stole, what she tried to take, was not my money, not my house, not my control. It was a test of my spirit. And I had passed. Finding inner peace. I spent afternoons walking in the park, feeling the wind brush against my face, the sun warming my skin, listening to the laughter of children and the chatter of neighbors. I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of betrayal had lifted. The weight of anger had dissolved. What remained was calm, steady, and enduring. I even began to forgive, not for Emily, not for her manipulation, but for myself, for allowing my heart to hope, to trust again, even when grief had made me vulnerable. And the greatest lesson emerged quietly. You cannot control other people. You cannot prevent betrayal. But you can control how you respond. You can choose your peace over conflict, your dignity over bitterness, your healing over resentment. Rebuilding the relationship with Michael. Over time, Michael and I rebuilt our bond. He became more than just a son, but a partner in restoring the emotional integrity of our family. We laughed again, shared stories, planned small adventures, and even began teaching each other new hobbies. I realized that in the end, love wasn't about money or trust alone. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and learning from mistakes. And slowly, the shadow Emily had cast faded. Not entirely gone, some scars remain, but softened by time and patience. Now, when I sit quietly in the evening, I think of James, of the years we built together, of the son I raised, and of the daughter-in-law who tested me. I smile softly to myself, because life taught me something profound. Even when betrayal strikes at the heart of what you love, even when someone you trust manipulates the people closest to you, you can reclaim your power, your dignity, and your peace. Money can be stolen, trust can be broken, but your soul remains yours, untouchable, resilient, enduring.